Dr. Kenji Yamamoto stared at the data on his screen for the 47th time in 3 hours, and it still made absolutely no sense. The calculations were correct, he'd triple-checked them. The satellite readings were accurate, he'd verified them against 6 different sources. The historical records were clear. He'd traced them back to the earliest gravitational measurements made by Henry Cavendish in 1798. Everything was correct, which meant everything was wrong. Kenji was an astrophysicist at the Tokyo Institute of Advanced Gravitational Studies, and for the past 8 years, he'd been working on precise gravitational measurements for the upcoming first contact. Humanity had received confirmation signals from an approaching alien vessel 3 months ago. The Galactic Collective, as they called themselves, would arrive in 6 weeks to formally welcome Earth into interstellar civilization. As part of the preparation, Earth's scientific community had been compiling comprehensive data about our planet: atmospheric composition, magnetic field strength, rotational period, and of course, surface gravity. Standard information that any spacefaring species would need to safely visit another world. The problem was that Kenji's new quantum gravitational sensors, designed to be the most accurate ever created, were giving him a reading that didn't match the established value for Earth's gravity. Not by a little. By a lot. According to every physics textbook, every scientific paper, every measurement ever taken, Earth's surface gravity was 98 meters per second squared, one standard g-force. The baseline, the reference point against which all other gravitational fields were measured. According to Kenji's new sensors, Earth's actual surface gravity was 29.1 meters per second squared, nearly 3 times what it was supposed to be. Kenji rubbed his eyes and looked at the data again. The quantum sensors measured gravitational fields by detecting the curvature of spacetime itself, using principles that hadn't even been theoretical when Cavendish first measured gravity with his torsion balance. The sensors were precise to the 15th decimal place. They were incapable of being this wrong. Which meant that every gravitational measurement for the past 227 years had been wrong instead. But that was impossible, wasn't it? Kenji pulled up historical records tracing back through centuries of gravitational research: Cavendish's original experiment, the Cater pendulum measurements, modern gravimeters, satellite data. Everything consistently showed 9.8 ms2. But as he dug deeper, Kenji noticed something odd. There were gaps in the historical record. Moments where research had been classified, where papers had been retracted, where entire research teams had disappeared from the scientific literature. Nothing obvious, you had to be looking specifically to notice the pattern, but it was there. Someone had been hiding something about Earth's gravity for over 2 centuries. Kenji's hands trembled as he opened a secure communication channel to his department head, Professor Alina Volkov. The message was brief: need to meet. Urgent regarding gravity measurements, extremely sensitive. Professor Volkov arrived at Kenji's lab 20 minutes later looking concerned. She was a formidable woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "This better be important, Kenji," she said. "I was in the middle of a conference with the UN First Contact Committee." "It's important," Kenji said. He pulled up his data. "The quantum sensors are giving readings that don't match established values for Earth's gravity." Volkov frowned. "By how much?" "Factor of 3. Volkov's expression didn't change, but Kenji saw her grip the edge of the desk. "Show me everything." For the next hour, Kenji walked her through his findings: the sensor data, the historical anomalies, the gaps in the research record. When he finished, Volkov was silent for a long moment. "I need to make a call," she said finally. "Don't discuss this with anyone, don't publish anything, don't even think about it too loudly." She paused at the door. "Kenji, you've stumbled onto something that's been classified at the highest levels for longer than either of us has been alive. The people who need to know about this will contact you within 48 hours. Until then, act normal." She left, and Kenji sat alone in his lab, surrounded by instruments that had just revealed a conspiracy spanning centuries, wondering what the hell he'd got himself into. The men arrived in 36 hours, not 48. 3 of them wearing suits that were too perfect, carrying credentials that identified them as representatives from something called the Gravitational Standardization Commission, an organization Kenji had never heard of despite working in gravitational physics for his entire career. The lead agent, if that's what they were, introduced himself as Director Morrison. He had the kind of face that was designed to be forgettable and a voice that was professionally neutral. "Dr. Yamamoto," Morrison said, settling into a chair in Kenji's lab. Your quantum sensors are functioning correctly. Earth's actual surface gravity is indeed approximately 29 meters per second squared, or roughly 2.96 standard g-forces. Kenji felt his world tilt. Then why? Why has humanity believed it to be 9.8 for over 2 centuries? Morrison finished. Because in 1806, 8 years after Cavendish's initial measurements, a group of scientists discovered the truth and immediately suppressed it. Why would they do that? Morrison pulled out a data pad and displayed historical documents. Because in 1806, the world was in chaos. The Napoleonic Wars were raging. The Industrial Revolution was beginning. Humanity was fragile, fractured, violent. These scientists, some of the greatest minds of their generation, made a calculated decision. They believed that if humanity knew we lived on a high-gravity world, it would be weaponized. Nations would breed super soldiers adapted to extreme gravity. The gravity difference would become another axis of conflict and inequality. So they lied, Kenji said flatly. They standardized, Morrison corrected. They established 9.8ms2 as the reference value, recalibrated all instruments to match, and created protocols to maintain the fiction. Every generation, a small group of scientists has been read into the truth and tasked with maintaining the deception. Your quantum sensors are the first technology in 200 years capable of measuring true gravitational fields without calibration bias. Kenji felt anger rising. And now? First contact is 6 weeks away. The aliens are coming. What happens when they measure Earth's gravity themselves? Morrison's expression became grim. That's why I'm here. The Gravitational Standardization Commission has been planning for this moment for decades. We need to come clean before the Galactic Collective arrives. But first, we need to understand the implications. What implications? Dr. Yamamoto, Morrison said carefully, humans evolved on a planet with 3 times the gravity we believed we had. Do you understand what that means for human physiology, for human capabilities? Kenji thought about it. Higher gravity meant stronger bones, denser muscles, more robust cardiovascular systems. Every human who had ever lived had been carrying 3 times their apparent weight as baseline normal. We're stronger than we should be, Kenji said slowly. Significantly stronger, Morrison confirmed. According to our projections, an average human in standard galactic gravity, which is approximately what we've been calling 9.8m/s2, would be able to lift roughly 3 times what they can lift on Earth. Human bone density is off the charts compared to what it should be. Our cardiovascular efficiency is extraordinary. We've been training in a gravity well without knowing it. But we move normally, Kenji protested. We don't feel like we're carrying 3 times our weight. Because we're adapted to it, it's our normal, but to species that evolved in actual standard gravity. Morrison paused. Humans are going to seem like something out of a nightmare, impossibly strong, impossibly durable, capable of feats that should be physically impossible. Kenji sat back processing this. The Galactic Collective is going to think we're monsters. Or weapons, Morrison said quietly. Or both, which is why we need to control this narrative very carefully. The UN First Contact Committee needs to be briefed. Protocols need to be established. We have 6 weeks to figure out how to tell the galaxy that humanity accidentally made themselves into super soldiers by evolving on a planet that's basically a death world by galactic standards. The emergency UN First Contact Committee meeting was held in Geneva 3 days later. Kenji had been flown in as the technical expert, along with a dozen other scientists who had been read into the gravitational conspiracy over the years. The room was filled with diplomats, military advisors, and representatives from every major nation. Ambassador Chen Wei, the UN's lead first contact negotiator, stood at the podium looking like she'd aged a decade in 3 days. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem. As you've all been briefed, Earth's actual gravity is approximately 3 times what we've believed it to be for over 2 centuries. This has profound implications for first contact. She pulled up a holographic display showing comparative data. According to information provided by the Galactic Collective, standard galactic gravity, the average surface gravity across inhabited worlds, is 9.4 meters per second squared. Earth's actual gravity of 29.1 ms2 makes us an extreme outlier. In fact, according to galactic classification systems, Earth would be categorized as a Class 4 heavy world, typically uninhabitable by most species. A murmur ran through the room. Someone asked the obvious question, what lives on Class 4 heavy worlds? Nothing that joins galactic civilization, Ambassador Chen said. According to the collective's databases, high-gravity worlds occasionally produce microbial life, but complex organisms typically don't develop. The physical stresses are too extreme. Humans shouldn't exist according to galactic biology. But we do exist, another delegate pointed out. What does that make us? An anomaly, Ambassador Chen said. One that the Galactic Collective will need to evaluate carefully. We've been in communication with them via faster-than-light communications. We've informed them of the gravity discrepancy. They've requested time to reassess their approach. Kenji raised his hand. What does reassessment mean? Ambassador Chen looked uncomfortable. They're considering whether first contact should proceed, whether it's safe to visit a world with gravity that high, whether humans, having evolved in such conditions, represent a potential threat. The room exploded into argument. Voices rose, accusations flew, centuries of paranoia about hostile alien invasion mixing with anger about the gravitational deception. It took 10 minutes for order to be restored. When it was, a representative from the military stood. We need to demonstrate that we're not a threat. Show them that despite our physical advantages, we're peaceful. How do we prove that? Someone asked. Send them footage of humans not crushing things with our freakish strength? We be honest, Kenji found himself saying. Everyone turned to look at him. We tell them the truth. That we didn't know, that we've been living our whole lives thinking this was normal, that we're just as surprised as they are. Ambassador Chen nodded slowly. Dr. Yamamoto is right, honesty is our best approach. We prepare a comprehensive briefing explaining the historical error, the recent discovery, and the implications. We provide medical data, physical capability comparisons, everything they need to understand what humanity is. And if they decide we're too dangerous, the military representative asked. Then we deal with that, Ambassador Chen said, but we deal with it honestly. The Galactic Collective's response came 2 weeks later. Their flagship vessel, the Harmonious Discovery, would still approach Earth as planned. However, they would maintain a safe orbital distance until appropriate safety protocols could be established. The delegation would land at the UN headquarters in New York, but they would be wearing protective exoskeletons to withstand Earth's extreme gravitational environment. The world watched as the Harmonious Discovery entered Earth's orbit. The vessel was beautiful, all flowing curves and bioluminescent patterns, clearly designed by beings who valued aesthetics as much as function. It positioned itself at a high geosynchronous orbit, far above the standard altitude for communications satellites. The landing shuttle descended slowly, carefully, its shields at maximum as if entering a hostile environment, which, from the aliens' perspective, they probably were. The first contact ceremony was held on the UN Plaza, with billions watching via live broadcast. Kenji was there as part of the scientific delegation, standing with other researchers who represented humanity's achievements. The shuttle landed with excessive caution. The ramp extended, and then the aliens emerged. They were beautiful, Kenji couldn't help but think it. The Valorans, as they called themselves, were elegant beings, roughly humanoid but more slender, with iridescent skin that shifted colors. They moved with fluid grace, each gesture seemingly choreographed. But they were also wearing massive mechanical exoskeletons, powered armor that whirred and hissed with each movement. The suits were clearly struggling, servos straining, stabilizers working overtime to keep the aliens upright in Earth's gravity. Ambassador Chen stepped forward to greet them. She moved normally, gracefully, not realizing how her casual stride must look to beings wearing strength-amplifying armor just to stand up. The lead Valoran, Ambassador Threll, according to the briefing materials, extended a hand in the human gesture of greeting they'd learned from transmissions. Ambassador Chen shook it gently, very aware that she could probably crush every bone in the alien's hand without trying hard. Ambassador Chen, Threll said, their voice translated by universal translator devices. On behalf of the Galactic Collective, I greet humanity, though I must confess, your world is far more formidable than we anticipated. We understand this must be uncomfortable, Ambassador Chen said diplomatically. Would you prefer to conduct the formal proceedings aboard your ship where gravity can be adjusted? No, Threll said firmly. We came to Earth. We will complete the ceremony here regardless of the physical challenges. To do otherwise would be an insult to your strength. The ceremony proceeded, but Kenji could see the strain on the aliens. Every movement was an effort. Their exoskeletons wheezed and clicked. When one of them attempted to climb the 3 stairs to the podium, the servos on their leg assembly actually sparked. This wasn't first contact, this was torture. The aliens were suffering just to be polite. After the formal ceremony, the delegations retired to a meeting room inside the UN building for private discussions. The room had been modified with adjustable gravity plates, technology the Galactic Collective had provided specifically for this meeting. The aliens could exist in comfortable 1G, what humans called 8ms2, while the human delegation would have to endure reduced gravity. Except when the gravity was reduced, something unexpected happened. Kenji felt it immediately, a lightness, a floating sensation. He took a step and nearly launched himself into the ceiling. Around him, other humans were having similar difficulties, stumbling, overcorrecting, struggling to move in the reduced gravity. Meanwhile, the aliens had removed their exoskeletons and were moving with visible relief, no longer crushed under Earth's extreme gravity. Ambassador Threll watched the humans flailing with an expression that might have been amusement. Fascinating. You are so adapted to your gravity that you cannot function properly without it. We've never experienced lower gravity, Ambassador Chen admitted, holding onto a table for stability. Except for astronauts in space, and they train extensively. For most of us, this is entirely new. May I ask a question? Threll said. Your species evolved in 29 meters per second squared gravity, yes. Apparently, yes. And you truly didn't know. You thought your world was standard gravity. We had measuring errors that compounded over time, Kenji explained, still gripping a chair to avoid floating away. By the time we had the technology to measure gravity accurately, the incorrect value was so embedded in our scientific framework that we never questioned it. Another Valoran delegate spoke up. But your physical capabilities. You must have noticed you were unusually strong, unusually durable. Compared to what? Ambassador Chen asked. We had no reference point. We thought we were normal. Every human you've ever seen on television, in videos, in communications, they were all performing at what we considered baseline human ability. Threll's skin shifted through several colors. Do you mean to tell us that when we saw your athletes performing what we categorized as extraordinary feats, your weightlifters, your gymnasts, your martial artists, they were merely average humans operating in extreme gravity? Well, they're exceptional humans, Ambassador Chen clarified. But yes, they're human normal exceptional. The aliens exchanged looks that Kenji's translator interpreted as profound concern. May I ask, Threll said carefully, what is the maximum weight an average, untrained human can lift in Earth gravity? Ambassador Chen looked to Kenji, who pulled up data on his pad. An untrained adult human can typically deadlift somewhere between 50 to 100 kilograms, depending on size and sex. That's in full Earth gravity, so 296 g, and in standard gravity. Kenji did the math. Approximately 150 to 300 kilograms. Maybe more. We don't have data on human performance in reduced gravity outside of limited space station experiments. The room went silent. One of the Valoran delegates made a sound that the translator rendered as distressed chirping. Ambassador Chen, Threll said slowly, the average Valoran can lift approximately 30 kilograms in standard gravity. Your average untrained human in comfortable gravity could lift 10 times what we can. Your trained athletes could likely lift. They paused, calculating, upwards of 1,000 kilograms. That seems possible, Kenji confirmed. Our strongest powerlifters can deadlift over 500 kilograms in Earth gravity. In 1G, they might manage 1,500 kilograms or more. Another long silence. I begin to understand, Threll said, why your historical records show such persistent warfare. With such physical capabilities, humans must be naturally aggressive, prone to conflict. Actually, we're not, Ambassador Chen said. I mean, we have conflicts, yes. But for the past 75 years, we've had no major global wars. We've developed international cooperation, diplomacy, mutual aid. Despite our physical capabilities, we've chosen peace. Because you understand that fighting beings of your strength would be mutually destructive, another Valoran suggested. Partly, Ambassador Chen admitted. But also because we developed ethics, philosophy, empathy. We chose cooperation over conflict. Our strength didn't make us monsters, it made us careful. Threll's colors shifted to something Kenji's briefing materials identified as thoughtful contemplation. I need to communicate with the Collective Council. This is not what we expected when we made first contact with Earth. Over the next 2 weeks, more Galactic Collective representatives visited Earth, biologists, anthropologists, military analysts, ethicists. All of them wore heavy-duty exoskeletons. All of them were shocked by what they found. They documented human capabilities exhaustively. Strength tests, endurance trials, injury resistance studies. They watched recordings of human activities with growing alarm. You call this parkour a recreational activity? A collective biologist asked, watching footage of humans leaping between buildings, falling multiple stories and rolling to absorb impact. This would kill most species, the impact forces alone. It's just athletics, the human researcher explained. People do it for fun. Fun, the biologist repeated weakly. They were similarly horrified by human contact sports. You deliberately collide with each other at high speed for entertainment. Rugby is actually one of our gentler contact sports, the human liaison said. You should see ice hockey. I don't think I want to. Martial arts demonstrations were cancelled after a collective observer fainted watching a Brazilian jiu-jitsu match where a human casually bent another human's limbs in ways that would snap Valorant bones like twigs. And you do this. Consensually, they asked when revived. For sport. Both participants signed waivers, the liaison confirmed. Your species is terrifying. But it wasn't just physical capabilities that shocked the collective, it was how casual humans were about it. You have disaster response teams that enter collapsed buildings, a collective safety analyst noted. Buildings that have fallen in your extreme gravity, creating crushing forces that would pulverize any Valorant rescue worker, and your teams just go in without power armor with minimal protective equipment. People are trapped, a human firefighter explained. We're not going to let them die just because it's dangerous. But you could die, the firefighter shrugged. It's the job, someone has to do it. The collective analyst stared. Humans volunteer for this? Yes, we actually have more volunteers than positions in most departments. Your species regularly volunteers to enter lethal environments to rescue strangers. Well, yeah, what else would we do? The collective analysts compiled their reports, and the galaxy tried to process what humanity represented. The debates in the Galactic Council were leaked to Earth's media, and humans got to read alien perspectives on their own species. Humans are death-worlders who don't know they're death-worlders. They consider life-threatening activities to be hobbies. They volunteer for dangerous tasks that trained professionals from other species would refuse. Their children play in gravitational conditions that would immobilize our adults. I recommend extreme caution in any physical interactions with humanity. Further evidence that humans are unaware of their own capabilities. I observed a human female, age 73, carrying multiple bags of groceries up 4 flights of stairs. She complained of being out of shape. In standard gravity, this individual could likely overpower our trained security personnel. Humans have weapons they classify as less lethal that would be immediately fatal to most collective species. Their police forces carry these routinely. I observed a training exercise where humans shot each other with rubber bullets and bean-bag rounds that would penetrate Valorant carapaces. They bruised and continued the exercise. I requested a handshake from a human child age 7. The child's grip was strong enough to crack my finger bones. This was considered gentle by human standards. I cannot emphasize enough, never physically interact with human children. Earth's internet exploded with reactions to the alien perspective. Wait, we're considered scary. Apparently parkour is an extreme sport to the entire galaxy. My grandma could beat up an alien marine. Guys, we accidentally made ourselves into super soldiers by living on a death planet. Someone needs to warn the aliens about Australian wildlife. Oh God, they haven't learned about Australia yet. 3 weeks after first contact, Ambassador Threll requested another meeting with the human delegation. This time it was held aboard the Harmonious Discovery, where gravity could be carefully controlled and aliens didn't need to wear crushing exoskeletons. The Galactic Council has deliberated, Threll began, Earth's admission to the collective presence. Unprecedented challenges. Ambassador Chen nodded. We understand if you need more time. No, Threll interrupted. You misunderstand. The Council has voted to admit Earth with full membership immediately, but with conditions. What conditions? First, humans must undergo extensive training before being allowed to visit standard gravity worlds. Your species genuinely doesn't understand your own strength, and accidental injuries are a significant concern. We've prepared educational materials on how to interact with non-heavy world species without causing harm. That seems reasonable, Ambassador Chen agreed. Second, Earth will be classified as a restricted access world. Only species with appropriate gravity handling equipment will be permitted to visit. This is for the safety of potential visitors. Also reasonable. Third, Threll hesitated. The Council requests that Earth provide assistance with tasks that require operation in high-gravity environments, rescue operations on heavy worlds, Salvage in intense gravitational fields, work that is extremely dangerous or impossible for other species but would be routine for humans. Ambassador Chen smiled. You want humans to do the galaxy's heavy lifting? Phrased crudely, yes. There are situations where your natural capabilities would be invaluable. Of course, such work would be compensated generously and would be entirely voluntary. I think we can work with that, Ambassador Chen said. We're actually quite good at dangerous rescue operations. It's kind of our thing. Over the following months, humanity's integration into galactic society proceeded with a mixture of fascination, caution, and occasional comedy. The first human exchange students to attend galactic universities became celebrities and accidental menaces. A human named Jessica accidentally broke a door at the prestigious Valoran Science Academy by pushing what she thought was a heavy door with normal force. It had been designed to be opened by Valorans and required minimal pressure. Jessica launched it off its hinges. I barely touched it. She protested to campus security. Human athletes were banned from most galactic sports after a human teenager playing casual basketball with Valoran students dunked so hard she shattered the backboard, bent the rim, and caused 3 Valorans to seek medical treatment for percussive shock trauma from the impact vibrations. It was just a regular dunk, she explained. Not even a good one. Conversely, humans struggled hilariously in low-gravity sports. Human soccer players kept accidentally launching themselves and the ball into orbit. Human swimmers moved so powerfully they created dangerous wake conditions in pools. Human runners had to be specially weighted to prevent them from simply bounding away. This is humiliating, one human Olympian complained after being told she had to wear a 200-kilogram weight vest to compete in the Galactic Track and Field Championships. I feel like I'm wearing a tank. You are, the collective official confirmed. That's approximately the weight of a light armored vehicle by our standards. It should bring your strength down to merely exceptional rather than world-breaking. But the real revelation came when the Galactic Collective's Heavy World Rescue Division received their first human volunteers. Commander Sarah Rodriguez led a team of 12 human first responders on their first mission, a Valoran research station on a Class 3 Heavy World 22G that had been damaged by a tectonic event. The scientists were trapped, unable to evacuate in the intense gravity. The collective's best rescue teams had tried and failed. The exoskeletons couldn't handle the stress. The conditions were too extreme. All right, team, Rodriguez said as they prepared to deploy. By their standards, this is a crushing hellscape. By our standards, it's like working in 0.74G. So basically, we're astronauts on the moon. This should be easy. And it was. The human team moved through conditions that had stopped collective rescue teams cold, carrying equipment, lifting debris, stabilizing structures. They worked for 8 hours straight in gravity that exhausted most species within minutes. When they returned with all 12 Valoran scientists safely rescued, the collective rescue coordinator just stared. You were in there for 8 hours, they said, in 22G without powered assistance. And you're fine, little tired, Rodriguez admitted, stretching. Definitely going to feel it tomorrow. But yeah, we're good. You just worked an 8-hour shift in gravity that should have crushed you within minutes and you're worried about being sore tomorrow. Rodriguez shrugged. Occupational hazard. The footage of the rescue was broadcast across the collective. Humans moving easily in conditions that required heavy machinery for other species. Humans lifting loads that would require entire teams and specialized equipment. Humans doing what they considered a normal day's work in an environment classified as extremely hazardous. Public opinion began to shift. Humans went from being viewed as potential threats to being seen as something else, miracle workers in impossible conditions. Heroes who could go where no one else could go. More requests came in. Structural work on high-gravity worlds. Mining operations in intense gravitational fields. Rescue missions in collapsed megastructures. Search and recovery on heavy planets. Humans volunteered in droves. Of course I'm going, a human construction worker told a reporter when asked about joining a high-gravity infrastructure project. They need help, I can help, so I'm helping. What else would I do? But it's dangerous. So's construction on Earth. At least this way I'm getting paid extra. Earth's economy boomed as galactic civilization realized that humans could do jobs that were otherwise impossible or prohibitively expensive. Heavy world construction, high-gravity manufacturing, deep-gravity mining, crisis response in extreme conditions. We've accidentally become the galaxy's blue-collar workers, President Williams joked during a press conference. And honestly, I think that's exactly where we should be, helping, building, making the impossible possible. 5 years after first contact, Dr. Kenji Yamamoto stood in his lab at the Tokyo Institute, now the Terran Galactic Gravitational Research Center. He was preparing a presentation for the Collective Science Council about using Earth-strength materials in galactic construction when Ambassador Threll contacted him. Dr. Yamamoto, Threll said via hologram, I wanted to personally thank you. For what? For discovering the truth about Earth's gravity, for forcing us to confront our assumptions, for introducing the galaxy to a species that shouldn't exist but does and does so with such remarkable grace. Kenji smiled. We're just doing what comes naturally. That's what makes you extraordinary, Threll said. You live on a death world and consider it home. You possess physical capabilities that should make you monsters but use them for rescue and construction. You are the strongest species in the collective and the least aggressive. You are humanity, and you have changed the galaxy simply by being yourselves. After the call ended, Kenji looked out his window at Tokyo stretching below, at billions of humans going about their daily lives in 3x gravity thinking nothing of it, commuting to work, playing with their children. Building, creating, living, they were stronger than they knew, more capable than they realized. And they'd chosen to use that strength not for conquest or dominance, but for helping others, building communities, making the impossible possible. Kenji pulled up the data that had started everything, the quantum gravitational sensors showing Earth's true gravity, the measurements that had revealed humanity's accidental lie. It had turned out to be the best lie ever told. Because if humanity had known the truth from the beginning, if they'd realized they were exceptional, powerful, superior, would they have developed the same values, the same commitment to cooperation and mutual aid, the same humble determination to just do the work that needed doing? Maybe the lie had saved them. Maybe thinking they were normal, average, unremarkable had made them exactly who they needed to be when first contact finally came. Kenji saved his files and headed home, walking easily through gravity that would crush most of the galaxy, carrying groceries that would require machinery for other species to lift, climbing stairs that would exhaust alien athletes. Just another normal day on Earth. Just another ordinary human, living an extraordinary life and never realizing the miracle of it. The end. Thank you for watching this story about humanity's greatest deception and most fortunate accident. Sometimes our limitations are our greatest strengths, and sometimes not knowing we're special is exactly what makes us special. Drop a comment about what you thought, and subscribe for more HFY stories celebrating humanity's unique place in the cosmos.